I'll be back.
And I am back.
Here are my top 10 favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. What are yours? Let's talk about that in the comments. Welcome to Durbania. I'm Durbin, and these are my top 10 favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. I'm excited to talk about my top 10 favorite, and I'm excited to hear from you. What are your top 10 favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies? Be sure to list them in the comments below, and while you're doing that, check out my description because I am not doing this video alone. I'm doing it in collaboration with Cody Leach and Bryan Lomax. All three of us are doing our top 10 favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. So you can link over to Cody's channel and see his top 10 favorite. You can link over to Bryan's channel and check out his top 10 favorite, and you definitely should do that. If you're here from one of their two channels, thank you so much for checking this out. Let's dive in. Number 10, Conan the Barbarian. This is a dark movie. I grew up mostly with Conan the Destroyer. I understand why I didn't see this movie until I was a little bit older. And I didn't even remember this movie. I've seen this one very little in comparison to The Destroyer. So rewatching it as an adult, it's dark. Conan fights a snake cult. James Earl Jones leads it, so I thought that was cool. Darth Vader leading this cult, and he morphs into a snake, which on the one hand looks incredibly fake. At the same time, the fact that it looks so fake, instead of it being CGI, makes it feel more real and in a sense more creepy. So it is quite creepy as he transforms into this snake. But Conan goes up against this snake cult. He gets crucified against the trunk of a tree. And that night he's about to die after he gets taken down from the tree. His girl Valeria and this wizard battle for his soul as these demons come in this raging red storm cloud to take his soul. It is a dark movie, but it does have a pretty overall interesting story with a lot of good action and sword fights, hilarious lines.
What is best in life?
Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and to hear the lamentation of their women.
Arnold punching a camel and knocking it out with one hit. A lot of fun Arnold moments, like before Arnold became really super famous. So it isn't, the middle is boring. Like the middle lost me showing him become rich because he's the king of thieves and all that stuff. I found that boring. But whenever it was him hunting down that snake cult, it was interesting and it pulled me in. Number 9, Conan the Destroyer. In some ways, it's almost night and day difference in the tone between the Destroyer and the Barbarian. And I'm thinking maybe it's because they were going for a much younger audience. Like my mom loved these type of movies when I was growing up. And so she always was watching these type of movies, and so was I. And that's why I don't remember the Barbarian as a kid, but I remember this one as a kid because you have the funny sidekick Malik.
But we didn't steal everything he had.
We didn't have time.
You have the cool company that he draws around him. You have this adventure. So it's like this definite story where he's going on a quest with a princess to reclaim the horn of Dagoth. He gets betrayed on that quest. He comes back. She's going to be sacrificed to Dagoth. If Dagoth wins, darkness covers the earth. He's got to rip the horn off the beast's nose and destroy the beast and save the princess. So it just has that definite quest feel, save the princess feel. So even as a kid, it's like easier to follow. I loved all the sword fight scenes in this movie. It was always so cool to see Arnold wielding that awesome and powerful sword that you know is super heavy, but it just looks sweet. I personally always loved it when he fought that glass monster. Watching it back recently, that dude looks so unbelievably fake, but still the buildup as they're going through the castle to fight that monster was cool, and the nostalgia of that fight washed over me. So yeah, it looks pretty fake and it's kind of cheesy, but you know what? It doesn't take away the fun of that for me just because I grew up with it. My wife didn't grow up with either one of these Conan movies, and she was pretty much bored by both of them. She did not have the same nostalgic feelings that I had, but I enjoyed it. I especially love it when he's fighting Dagoth at the end, and the thunder and the lightning, the strobe light effect, him realizing he's got to rip the horn off. And what does he do? He jumps on that monster's back, grabs that thing by the nose, and rips that horn out. It is epic. Maybe it's not epic because it looks like a dude in a costume, but it was fun. Number 8, The Last Action Hero. This came out the same year as Jurassic Park. So as a kid, dinosaurs and Jurassic Park took all of my attention. But about a year or two later, I discovered this movie and I really enjoyed it. Now, a lot of the finer points where they were taking the typical action movie one-liners and the Arnold Schwarzenegger one-liners and they were throwing them in there and stuff like that was over my head because as a kid I never saw the Terminator movies and stuff like that, so there were a lot of jokes that I didn't get, but even then it still drew me in because I love the idea of Danny having that magic ticket that pulled him literally into the movie where he became Arnold Schwarzenegger's sidekick. Even as a kid, I loved the idea that he would punch glass and it didn't hurt. He'd get shot and it's nothing but a flesh wound, or exploded and it was nothing but a flesh wound.
God, how do they walk away in movies without flinching when it explodes behind them? There's no way! I need an MRI!
But then he goes into the real world and they shoot cars and they don't explode. He punches glass and it hurts, and he plays chicken and that hurts even worse. Even as a kid, I loved that. And it was even more hilarious as an adult, especially as an adult going through there and knowing the rivalry between Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then seeing Sylvester Stallone was the Terminator, and when they went into the video rental store when Danny really wanted to prove Arnold Schwarzenegger is, you know, the Terminator. And so it was hilarious to see Sylvester Stallone in that pop-up stand and all that stuff.
It isn't possible.
What's not possible? He's fantastic. This is his best performance ever.
It was hilarious going into the police station and you have the T-1000 walking out of the police station. Like, a lot of really cool things I didn't notice as a kid, but I freaking loved it as an adult, having now gone back and seen all these movies and love all these movies. Last Action Hero is a ton of fun. I posted in my community tab that I was watching it, and you guys posted tons of your favorite lines from this movie, such as,
Jeez, how'd you know there was a guy in there?
There's always a guy in there.
I'll be back.
Ha! You didn't know I'm gonna say that, did you?
That's what you always say.
Rubber baby buggy bumpers. Ha! You didn't know I'm gonna say that, did you?
there's a lot of just tremendous moments, and the way they do a parody of the action genre while showing their love for the action genre, you could just tell they had a ton of fun putting this movie together, which translates to a ton of fun in watching this movie. Number 7, Total Recall. This movie is weird. It is just plain weird.
Open your mind. Open your mind.
What I love so much about this movie is it real or is it not real? I mean, he really wants to go to Mars. He's anxious to go to Mars. He goes to Total Recall when he hears about it for the first time. And it's really hilarious because as they go through the package that they want to put in his brain, they go through everything that happens in this movie.
You are a top operative, back under deep cover on your most important mission. People are trying to kill you left and right.
What's so cool about this movie is this all real or is this all fake? They give you all the evidence in the world that this is Total Recall, that this is the memory and the package that he paid for.
That's a new one. Blue sky on Mars.
Been married long?
And they give you enough evidence that no, this is all real, that he really was an undercover spy, and him going to Total Recall triggered his true identity, which made all of this stuff to happen. I mean, come on. He was unconscious when the lady was talking about how we did not implant the memories yet.
He's just acting out the secret agent portion of his ego trip.
I'm afraid that's not possible.
Why not?
Because we haven't implanted it yet.
Ah! But then again, that could have just been part of the whole package. So it's like, is this real? Is this not real? Even in the end where he goes, I don't know if I'm dreaming or not. And she goes, well, then enjoy the moment. And they kiss and we go to credits.
What if this is a dream?
Well, then kiss me quick before you wake up.
When we go to credits, is that when he wakes up and it's a dream? Does he still love his wife? Is he gonna go home and appreciate her more now? Like, or is this whole thing real? Was he really a spy and it all just happened to go this way? I love the fact that the movie doesn't really definitively answer that. And if you disagree and you think there are definitive answers, let's talk about that in the comments because I would love to hear your thoughts and your theories on that. Number 6, Kindergarten Cop. This movie is just a blast. Again, I grew up with it. I remembered loving it as a kid. It was just so much fun. I couldn't believe how much fun I had with it as an adult. And you know what was great? My wife, Laura, never saw this movie. So us watching it together a few days ago was her first time ever seeing this movie. And her reaction was just priceless. She was laughing out loud. She was on the edge of her seat. Like, it was a good movie that drew us in. What I love about it is you do have your typical Arnold action in this movie, but then you have that fish out of water element with him being a kindergarten teacher. And they do a good job towing that line, but getting you attached to all of the characters so you're really caring about what's happening. It's not overly cheesy, and it's a lot of fun. Like, one of the things that I just love is watching Kimball grow throughout the movie. So when Arnold becomes the kindergarten teacher, those kids are monsters.
Shut up!
Like, I fell for him, man. It was terrifying when he became a kindergarten teacher and he was alone in that classroom taking on those kids. It was a waking nightmare. And then he slowly figures out how to bring the class under control. And as he brings the class under control, like, more and more so you get attached to the personalities of some of the kids in the class. Like, definitely not all of them, but they pick a select few and you get attached to them and you like the characters. Like the kid that's getting abused by his dad, you want Arnold to hit that guy.
You hit the kid, I hit you.
And then when the bad guy finds his son, and that was cool. My wife Laura didn't know which kid in the class was the son of the bad guy. So I didn't say anything, and it was a blast. Me asking her questions. I didn't ask her leading questions. I was just asking her questions of what she thought as she was trying to figure out who is the kid that the bad guy is after. And so that was a lot of fun. She was able to predict it about halfway through and had it 100% right, because it's kind of obvious by the time you get to the middle. But if you've never seen it, it is actually kind of fun. Like, if you don't watch the trailers or anything and you don't know who the son is, that becomes part of the story, trying to figure out who is Arnold trying to find. And so as Arnold grows as a character and softens as a character, you're like right there with him. In fact, you want him to stay as a kindergarten teacher and leave his life as a cop. So they do a really good job with this movie beginning to end. It's just a lot of fun, and it's a great classic. Number 5, Commando. I never, ever saw this movie. Ever. Never saw it as a kid, never saw it growing up. I have never so much as seen a trailer for this. When Cody Leach invited me to be a part of this, that was the first time I ever watched Commando. That is how you should watch this movie. If you're like me and you haven't seen it, do not look up a trailer. Do not look up a plot summary. Go into this movie cold. So I guess I'm about to warm it up for you, but my gosh, what a blast it was. It kind of reminded me of 24 because each episode is an hour long and we're on the clock going in real time fighting against the clock, which helps build that intensity. So the fact that Arnold is supposed to go to another country, kill this president to take the bad guy so he can sit up and be president, and Arnold's like, yeah, right, you might have my daughter hostage, but I ain't no idiot and I ain't doing that. And right there on the plane, kills his guard, figures out how to get off the plane without stopping the plane from taking off. Like, that was incredibly smart. Now you have him racing against the clock. He has to remain incognito. Nobody can know that he's not on that plane. He's only got 11 hours to solve the mystery of where his daughter is, to save her and defeat these bad guys before it's all too late. That was an incredibly intense and very interesting plot. And the flight attendant that he ends up, I guess, does he fall in love with her? They didn't do a whole lot of romance. I just kind of figure with these type of movies that they eventually ended up together. I thought she was a pretty cool character. She annoyed me in the beginning, ready to turn on him. But when she called those cops over and then they went to get him, and that whole fight scene in the mall takes place, he picks up the phone booth with somebody in it. It might have been cheesy, but it was awesome. It was awesome. So really, I loved the action in Commando. I loved the story in Commando. It was flippin' amazing. Number 4, The Terminator. And Terminator really is such a good movie. I remember watching it for my review and just enjoying how dark it was. Like, it was darker than I was expecting, and I loved it. And again, since this is an Arnold ranking, one of the things that makes this movie so cool is Arnold is not the good guy. He is not the hero. He is the bad guy. And him being that cold, emotionless robot from the future, and so big, and the way that he talks, it just added to, I guess, the fear of that character. Arnold as a bad guy is a very intimidating bad guy. Yeah, this cemented some of those lines that keep coming back, like, I'll be back.
I'll be back.
But in the context of the film, it's kind of scary him standing there in those sunglasses. Even when they burn off his eyebrows and he looks kind of silly, I'm still not in a hurry to make enemies with that Terminator. Plus, one of the things I love about this movie is it was a closed loop in terms of time travel. Like, this movie by itself, Kyle Reese was sent back to protect Sarah Connor because Skynet sent back a Terminator to kill Sarah Connor. Little did Skynet know that they sealed their doom by sending that Terminator back, because Kyle Reese is the father of John Connor, who brings victory to mankind. So in sending the Terminator back, they sealed their defeat because Kyle Reese makes John Connor along with Sarah Connor, and so it's a closed loop. And I thought that was so interesting the way they did it, and then I liked how they tackled fate versus free will and the second one. But this one, it seemed very much fate. Time is a closed loop. If it's in the past is the past, and so that's just how it goes. And I like that. Here's Skynet thinking, I will be victorious and I will go back to the beginning, and sure, no human can defeat me. And instead they sealed their doom, and they had no knowledge that that's what they did. Number 3, The Predator. This was the first movie I ever saw on the big screen. So I was a toddler, and my only memory of seeing this on the big screen is Arnold Schwarzenegger noises and Predator noises, and me looking down at the aisle and following the lights up to the exit, you know, kind of hiding my head in my dad's chest. Well, finally I go back and I watch this movie as a full-blown adult, and I love it. It has, I mean, what's not to love? It has everything that you would want. It has the cheesy Arnold action one-liner.
Stick around.
It shows off his muscles and his strength. It has these great action sequences. But then with the alien, with this Predator character in here, taking out Arnold's troop one by one, it kind of takes this horror element and throws that in there as they're fighting this unidentified monster. So it's kind of like a mixture of both worlds. You got the horror genre in there, you got the crazy 80s action genre in there, and it worked. It worked so well. And of course, Arnold, just with that Arnold presence, bringing it to that, him building the traps to defeat this creature, disguising himself in mud, the final battle that ensues between them, is just great. Number 2, True Lies. I thought this movie was fantastic when I was young. I absolutely loved it. I watched it all the time, and somehow I don't own it now as an adult, so I found chunks of scenes on YouTube, and that was the best I could do to refresh myself on it, because I can't find it anywhere, except on like Sling TV. I'm not doing a whole nother account. No, that's not gonna happen. However, I do love this movie. Bill Paxton is hilarious. That whole thing with him and Jamie Lee Curtis, where he's trying to pretend to be a spy, so he sounds exciting, to try to get housewives out of their boring, mundane life, and even then, he's still a failure in getting with the girl. And then it turns out Arnold is a real spy and freaks the ever-living snot out of him, and his wife is saying, I just wanted some excitement in my life, so he gives her that excitement, sends her on an excitement that ends up getting them both kidnapped by terrorists. He's a fantastic husband. But I love it. I love the whole double life where he's just this boring computer salesman. And his own wife sits there and talks about, like, he's just so boring. Harry is so boring. Dude, he is the spy who has saved the world and saved the country countless times. Very cool how it ends with Jamie Lee Curtis joining him in that life. Tom Arnold is just a hysterical sidekick. The action is great. James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger is a great team. Number 1, Terminator 2, Judgment Day. The more I thought about this movie, the more I realized it needs to be my number 1. Because for me personally, it checks off all the boxes. Time travel is awesome. I love science fiction. Arnold Schwarzenegger is amazing. I love action movies. Time travel, sci-fi, action, all of it covered in this movie. I loved the relationship between John Connor and the Terminator. Here he was a freaking scary bad guy who was cold and emotionless. And now he's the good guy and he's still cold and emotionless. Yet him being cold and emotionless following his program became a better father and role model to John Connor than any of the men that Sarah Connor had been with during this entire time. Like, this guy, I guess in a way he cared about her, in a way he didn't, but you could just tell as he's learning the human experience, in his own way he had emotion. In his own way he cared for him. And when he sacrificed his life for John Connor and he's like,
I know now why you cry, but it's something I can never do.
incredibly emotional ending. So Terminator 2 has it all. It's got some great emotion, the sci-fi, the action, the whole thing. It took it to the next level. Instead of being time travel a closed loop, this time it asks the question of fate versus free will. Do we really have free will? Could we change the world? Are we really fated to go in a certain direction, or can we change the direction things are going? Arnold comes from the future, so it would seem that future's in stone, yet the choices in this movie change that future. So it was interesting how they took it to that next level. Those are my top 10 favorite Arnold movies. What are yours? Let's talk about that in the comments. And while you're doing that, be sure to go in my description and head over to Cody Leach's channel and check out Cody Leach's top 10 Arnold movies, and head over to Bryan Lomax's channel and then check out his top 10 favorite Arnold movies. And hit that subscribe button to become a Durbanian. Hit that bell by the subscribe button so you're notified for my next ranking video or theological analysis, movie review, or anything else I do here. I'm Durbin. Thanks for checking out Durbania.